Hello, hello. You're on the road less traveled with Gary L. and Gigi's Boo on RealLibertyMedia.com. If you're not over at Real Liberty Media, look at all these people you're missing, like Grimner, Kate, and Beth Z, and Charleston E, and Circle, and Chloe, and IB Don C, and Graham Z, and Java Doctor. JJ's here. He puts on some great music from time to time. Enjoy that. Juana Taco, Mr. Asmodeus. We haven't seen Asmo in a while. Hello, Asmo. Paul Bunyan, Rain, Rob Works, Trust No One. Vinny, Behind the Woodshed is here. Just had his show from 3 to 5. If you missed it, well, you just missed everything. Dakota, Dima, Dorky Lynn. Dorky Lynn. I don't think I know who that is. Frumpy, Gigi's Boo is here. Kozu, Mbot, Moy, Nenson Dubois, Poxified, Pawn Sauce, Sock Puppet, Slim Jim, Flim, and the Phantom. That list just goes on and on, Gigi's Boo, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. How's everybody tonight?
Yeah, how is everybody?
Grimner asked me how I was doing, and I told him I was as fine as frog hair on a Saturday night.
That's right. Fine as them froggy hairs. Frog hairs, we're going to actually touch on some of that as the show goes on. So what's been going on this week, Gigi's Boo?
Nothing in particular except, oh, Lord, trying to get this house the way me and you want it. That's just, that alone right there is enough to keep us busy. If it was a great big house, I don't know how we'd get it done. But we're getting silver polished, old china put up that was belonged to great-great-grandmothers, and getting everything squared away, ready for the Christmas season. And we'll be give out by the time Christmas gets here. You got to go out and bang us a turkey, Gary.
Turkey? Yeah, that would be nice.
Bang us a turkey.
I'm not much of a hunter, but as hunting goes, turkey hunting is probably one of the most challenging things.
And it's the only one you'll do.
Yeah, just not much there. I mean, certainly know how to do it if push came to shove, if it became necessary. Then it would be done. But just for the heck of it, I mean, turkey hunting is so challenging if done properly that good luck with that one. Right? But,
do you remember the first Walton's series that came on? It was a movie called The Homecoming, and they had a guy that was going around stealing turkeys and hams from Piggly Wigglies and places like that and giving them out to the mountain people that were poor. And they pulled up and he come in and had a turkey, and Grandma Walton said, where'd you get this turkey? He said, I shot it up on Choctaw Ridge. I don't know, one of the ridges. She said, this don't appear to be no wild turkey. There's not no buckshot in it. He said, no, ma'am. I shot it sitting still. It wasn't in flight. It was sitting still. And she turned around and she said, you shot a sitting still turkey? Don't tell me you shot a sitting still turkey. He said, yes, Miss Walton, at 20 yards. I shot his head clear off. I thought that was one of the funniest scenes in that whole movie. I don't know why. It was just the way that he said it.
Right.
Because most hunters will tell you they're going to pop that turkey when it's flying.
Right. Yeah, well, if one gets into the air, you might as well hang it up because it's gone. You try to shoot them from the rear, it doesn't work out. They have a lot of padding back there, so it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And plus you run the risk of all you're going to do is injure it, and that you don't want to do that either. So anyway, but we'll talk more about all this Appalachian stuff here in a minute. And Grimner points out that Dorky Lynn is Flash's brother, Alan B. Okay, I didn't realize that. So hello, Dorky Lynn. So what else? Anything else going on? Gigi's Boo, you've been polishing silver and moving some furniture around, haven't you?
Wow, moving furniture here and there, and of course Atticus's antics and Algene's antics. And so we have a real ruckus around here sometimes. But we've been busy. We've had a busy week. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Atticus, the dogs just add color to the world. That's all. But speaking of color, I want to clean up some of the language in this one article, because since one of our archives shows up on YouTube, don't want to get Grimnir demonetized or set up on restricted mode, which is pretty much the same thing. So it's an article from the Guardian in News in Australia. It seems that a journal, one of these scientific journals, accepted a bogus paper requesting that these folks be removed from a mailing list. Okay. It says Australian computer scientist Dr. Peter Van Plu submitted emphatically titled paper to Predatory Journal and nearly fell off the chair when it was actually accepted, and the title of the paper is "Get Me Off Your Effing Mailing List." And it's
Shut up. That's something, isn't it?
Yeah. David Mazares and Eddie Kohler out of New York University, University of California, Los Angeles, were the original writers of this paper. And basically, it consisted of that one sentence, "Get me off your effing mailing list," being repeated over and over and over and over and over throughout the paper. The Open Access Predatory Academic Journal has accepted a bogus research paper submitted by an Australian computer scientist titled "Get Me Off Your Effing Mailing List." The paper, originally written by American researchers Mazares and Cole in 2005, consisted of those words repeated over and over. They even put in a helpful diagram, which you will see as we share this. And if you look up the source on the archive at Real Liberty Media later on, you'll see how they have the words circled and arrows pointed to boxes, and all the words are in there. Dr. Peter Van Plu, a lecturer and researcher in computer science at Federation University in Victoria, submitted the paper to the International Journal of Advanced Computer Technology earlier this year, after receiving dozens of unsolicited emails from the publication and other journals of a dubious repute. There has been this move to open access publishing, which is often meant essentially a user pays system, Van Plu said. So you pay to have the paper published, and it's available to the public for free. An academic librarian at the University of Colorado, Jeffrey Beal, told Nature magazine last year that up to 10% of open access journals were exploiting the model by charging a fee to proofread, peer review, and edit a research paper without actually carrying out the work. So they're referred to as predatory journals. Let's hold the phone right there for a moment. And let's examine, this is a funny story, right, GT's Boo?
It is funny. Mm.
Yeah, but let's examine the potential side effects of such predatory papers, I guess, or predatory journals. Essentially, every piece of junk in the world can be published and considered peer-reviewed, whatever you'd want to write. So how does that stack up, to some of these arguments that people have? They say, well, it's a peer-reviewed study and blah, blah, blah. It could just all be junk that somebody paid to have published. I wonder how much that happens, GG's Boo.
I don't know. Happens a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah. But I can kind of see why he'd be upset about that. It's another option, since it's in reference to emails and not to actual physical mailings that you receive in your mailbox, to which you can always, perhaps hypothetically speaking, of course, wrap a brick up and tape the self-addressed postage paid return envelope to it and send it back to the originator, so they have to pay the postage. But who would do that, right? Okay. And around Christmas time, we hear about Salvation Army, right? It's a great operation. And, a lot of people hear about Goodwill, right, Chi-Chi's Boo? And many, many things are contributed to Goodwill. But in this case, at a California Goodwill, They were looking through their box of donations and were surprised to find a hand grenade. Authorities say an elderly woman left the box at the Placentia Goodwill Wednesday afternoon. Nearby businesses were evacuated while the Orange County Sheriff's Department's bomb squad responded to the store. About 2 hours after the initial call, officials declared the area safe. Police are asking anyone with information to come forward. Now, Gigi's Boo, I guess it's possible that it was a real grenade, but as we were doing pre-show, you can search for inert hand grenades, and there are all kinds of sources for those. They come in the shape of cigarette lighters, they come in the shape of piggy banks, and you can actually get the real ones that have been rendered inert. So I have a little bit of a hard time believing it's a real honest-to-goodness hand grenade. That showed it could have been, I suppose.
Well, it probably scared them to death, though. Don't you think? Especially today. Oh no! Somebody put a hand grenade in the donation box. It scared me to death.
Yeah, referring back to the previous story, Hal behind the woodshed in the chat room says it's consensus-based fraud to resort to peer review, which happens to be reviewed by those complicit in the crime and its execution. There you go. So you can come up with all kinds of wonderful things, have it peer-reviewed, and everybody's an accomplice to the crime. What a wonderful world in which we live. Yeah. So anyway, any thoughts on Goodwill? Well, let's look at that. Salvation Army and that sort of thing. Actually, I'll jump the story to the front, Gigi's Boo, because it's a little bit related to the holiday theme. It seems that Aldi, the grocery store which we love so much, the German grocery store, is going to give away all its unsold fresh food to less fortunate individuals on Christmas Eve. And that's pretty cool, don't you think? This is also out of the Independent. Aldi has offered to give all its unsold fresh food away to charities and good causes when its stores close on Christmas Eve. The supermarket chain issued an appeal on social media urging organizations across the country to collect items left over after its branches have shut up shop for the festive period. A statement issued by the firm says it wants to share products with groups such as food banks in support of less fortunate individuals in order to prevent food from going to waste. Have you ever wondered about that, Gigi's Food? We seem...
Well, I think grocery stores and restaurants, if they have anything at the end of the day, I think they ought to try to give it to people that are less fortunate. I begged a big chain here in town. I think you remember that. I went up and asked them all the food that they didn't sell by that night, the time that the buffet was over. Could I have it? And I was going to take it down to give the homeless. And they told me they couldn't give it to me because if some of them got sick, somebody could sue them. And I'm thinking, if people are absolutely starving to death and all this food you're throwing away, that just doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't.
No, it doesn't. Go ahead.
Not as tight as I am with money and cooking and eating leftovers and the whole 9 yards. I just don't see that. To me, that is very sinful.
Yeah, it's an atrocity. In fact, while you were talking, I was starting to look up how much food is wasted in the United States. Okay. All right, here we go. How the U.S. manages to waste $165 billion with a B dollars in food each year. Each year, about 40% of all food in the United States goes uneaten. It's just tossed out or left to rot. And that's a fairly large waste of resources. All that fresh water and land, all the fertilizer and energy for nothing. By one recent estimate, which is from ScienceDirect.com, Americans are squandering the equivalent of $165 billion each year by rubbishing so much food. And, and you hit the nail on the head mostly, I think, Gigi's Boo. You're talking about people's presumed liability in that. But this is just crazy, isn't it?
Yep, it is.
National Resource Council says, though, that the statistics don't tell the whole story. So how does it get wasted? Okay. The fact that Europe does a better job of curtailing waste than does the United States. Okay. Farming, number one. Roughly 7% of the produce that's grown in the United States simply gets stranded in fields each year. Some growers plant more crops than there is demand for to hedge against disease and weather. Some produce goes unpicked because it doesn't meet standards for shape and color. Oh, it has to be pretty food, right, Gigi's Boo?
Yep.
Post-harvest and packing. After crops have been gathered, farmers tend to cull produce to make sure it meets minimum standards for size, color, and weight. One large cucumber farmer estimated that fewer than half of the vegetables he grows actually leave the farm, and that 75% of the cucumbers culled before sale are edible. The culprit here is this high aesthetic standard for food. Now, who's setting that high aesthetic standard, Gigi's Boo?
Well, I would think it would be Monsanto and all that bunch of big ruffian trash.
It's got to be pretty. It's got to be big and pretty. And okay, wow. Processing and distribution. Plenty of food gets trimmed in the manufacturing stage, though much of it is inedible anyway. But there still is a fair bit of avoidable waste. Retail and grocery stores. Here we go. Grocery stores are another huge source of rubbished food, with the USDA estimating the supermarkets toss out $15 billion worth of unsold fruit and vegetables alone each year. And it's seen as a cost of doing business, by the way. I suppose you can deduct that from your taxes, can't you?
Probably.
Stores would rather overstock their shelves and throw out the remainder than look empty. Madison Avenue comes to mind. Supermarkets will also winnow out produce that is in subpar condition, since few shoppers want to buy an apple that's all bruised up. Hello, Java Doctor. What's up? Javader. How you doing? How doing there? And there's also the issue of sell-by dates. Now, I think most of us understand that whole concept behind a sell-by date is to ensure that the assembly lines never stop running. Does that sound about right, Gigi's Boo?
Sure.
Most of the food is still edible. In many states, it's still perfectly legal to sell food past its expiration date. But many stores just don't want to do it. And I can't imagine why. Oh, of course, you know why. Because they have to keep the assembly line running. Then you get into food service and restaurants. As far as wasted food goes, the average diner leaves about 17% of their food uneaten. And that portion actually has gotten larger because here in America, bigger is better. So our portions have ballooned in the past 30 years. And restaurants also try to keep a larger variety of food available for people, you see. And we won't even mention McDonald's. Okay, we'll skip that. Households, though, appear to be the big one. According to various estimates, I'd have to look to see where those estimates come from. You can see it in the link later. American families throw out between 14 and 25% of the food and beverages they buy. This can cost the average family between $1,300 and $2,200 annually. A big factor here is that food has become so cheap and readily available. Well, that depends on who you're talking to about that, doesn't it, Gigi's Boo?
That's right.
Maybe these folks at the Washington Post find that food has become so cheap and available. But there are probably people in the world who would not agree with that statement. And not all discarded food is equal. The report estimates that only 3% of thrown out food in the United States is composted. Most of it ends up in the landfill. The report notes that Americans waste 50% more food than they did in 1970, which suggests that there's a fair bit of room to improve. Actually, I didn't mean to get so tangled up in that. That is kind of like a big pet peeve to me. Is how we seem to be so wasteful, and we have people in parts of the world who are suffering from an extreme want. And we have people right here in the United States that are suffering from extreme want. Anything you want to add to that, Gigi's Boo?
No, you did well.
I don't know about all that. But speaking of areas that display extreme want in many ways, but area that we're kind of familiar with, Gigi's Boo, the Appalachian area of the world, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Great place. Hard living sometimes, but a great place.
Well, it keeps the what is that thing? The smartphone. Yeah, it keeps the smartphone out of your hand and out of your face when you're chopping wood or planting a garden or pulling weeds or those sorts of things.
Or swinging on a vine, or playing in the creek.
That's right.
Helping pick corn.
Yeah.
Helping hog killing. Whew, I could never stand that. When they went to kill the hogs, I run up on the side of the mountain, covered my ears. I couldn't stand to hear those swine squeal.
Mm-hmm.
But after they got through, I didn't mind helping, but I just couldn't do with that squealing, and then they killed them, and then they had to scrape them. That's just too much for me.
No, you have to.
They'd look for me, and my grandmother would say, "There's not no use in looking for that Brenda Ann. She's up there on the side of the mountain." Now, I would be with my fingers in my ears, and I'd be singing whatever till somebody come got me, and then I came down and helped them. But that's hard stuff. But it was a way of life. You had to do it.
Yeah,
it was just a way to do, and I can still close my eyes and smell that smokehouse where they hung the hams and the bacon and salt pork and everything. Oh, golly. My poopa kept a slow fire burning. That meat smoked and the sausages. That's good eating, but I just didn't like to have to hear them pigs squeal.
Well, you have to appreciate the fact that a hog is every bit as intelligent and sometimes more so than your average dog.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always been something that's bugged me about that. And as soon as you shoot the first one, all the rest of them know, no matter how secluded you think you've made them. All the rest of them know. It's kind of a sad thing, but like you said, that was part of living. That was just a necessity at the time. And your comment about the smokehouse is well made and well received, because that's probably the old hickory smoke smell. Oh yeah, is it's just,
and rendering the lard. I know you saw your mama probably do this. They'll tell you, oh, don't use butter or don't use your lard. Well, heck, fire, that's all they used. And part of my job when I got a little older was rendering the fat. They'd put it in a big old wash pot, I called it, in the backyard with the fire under it. And then as the cracklings come to the top, I had a strainer and I got it off and put the cracklings on one side. And then when the fat was rendered, my grandmother would put it up in tubs, and that's what she fried chicken with. And you can say what you want to, but Crisco or anything else, nothing fries chicken like lard, plain old lard.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
People didn't have no clogged up veins or arteries back then. They worked. I think all that came with all this additives that these people are putting in this food. No.
Yeah.
Pretty clear they made it. It was hard work, but they worked hard and they lived long, and they didn't stand with their hand out. You didn't see anybody with an entitlement attitude in the Appalachians.
You didn't see a whole lot of fat ones either, did you?
Yeah. Go ahead, Gary. I'm sorry.
I said you didn't see a whole lot of fat ones either, did you?
No. This preacher, I think I've told this before about the Appalachian Mountains, but this preacher that Mama knew, he went up into the Appalachian Mountains and was going to run a revival. Now, if you Baptist, anybody's Baptist, or any of y'all goes to church and know what a revival is, that's a preaching service that they hold every night for one solid week. Now, pretty much people's got away from that. They might do a 4-night revival, but years ago it was a 7-day revival. Preacher preached Sunday morning. He got there, and then Sunday night, and then all the way through the week one night. And then that Sunday morning, he preached his last service, and he left. Well, if you was a visiting preacher in the Appalachians, everybody had to preacher over one night for supper. I mean, it was left up to the church members to have him over. And when he come back, he said he didn't want to ever see fried chicken no more. He said every night and every meal outside of breakfast, they had fried chicken because that was their best. That was what the people had that was the best. They didn't have a roast or anything like that, but everybody kept chicken, so that preacher got the best meal that they had. And he said he ate so much fried chicken he doubt he'd ever want it again. But he said that he knew that those people had given the very best that they had to feed him, and he appreciated it. But fried chicken's a staple when you got company coming up there.
That's right.
And another staple is beans and bean soup. Doesn't matter what kind of beans you got. Them dried beans, you have that, don't matter. My grandmother used to fry them up for breakfast. You know, she had them left over. You'd do that, and she'd save her grits. People cook grits and stuff now, and they get that quick grits and everything. Her grits cooked 20 minutes, and boy, anything left over, she'd slice them and fry them up for you the next meal. I mean, that was just something that they did. They didn't waste up there.
That's right.
Still don't.
You weren't in a position to waste. what you wasted today, you'd go hungry tomorrow. Right?
That's right.
And there's always food to share with other people around if necessary. So, and this all goes back to that whole local concept, right? You know how things operate much better in a decentralized, locality-based type system. And you know, and this is exactly what the creatures out there who want to control things. This is what they want to. One of the things they want to undo. They want to get rid of all this local affinity type relationship thing. Make everything's got to be global in nature. Everything has to be centralized and collectivized and homogenized and sliced.
And it was neighbor helping neighbor. There wasn't no such thing as like one of the neighbors gets down. I know they had barn raisins, and my mama's been to plenty of barn raisins. It's something, I think I went to one when I was real little. But when a man wanted a barn, he called all the men together in the community, and he said, I need to raise the barn. Well, all the women went, and they cooked this big meal, and all the men, they actually raised a barn in one day. The sides, the roof, everything. Now, all he had to do was come in and do the inside of the barn. And the women sat on the porch while the men worked, and they had big dinners for them. And the men came in and ate. Then they fed the children, and the ladies ate. Usually the women ate last. They fed the children after the men. Men went back working. And it was neighbor helping neighbor in anything. If somebody was sick and it was for their crops to come in, they went and they helped gather the crops. And it's just, like you say, it's a community. And I think so many people miss out now living in gated communities and in neighborhoods where they never know who their next door neighbor is. The whole 9 yards. It's really, really bad. Thank God we know who our neighbors are around here. Right. And if one of them needs something, we're right there to help them. And they come to help us.
Right.
We don't invade their space per se, or take up their time unnecessarily. But it's just like we used to say when we were growing up, a lot of our mothers had to work. But if we hollered mama, it didn't matter whose mama it was. If there was a mama there, she'd come out the door to see about you, you know. And I think that's what we're going to have to get back to do. That's what Gary and I have strived so hard for in the prepper concept, is to have like-minded people with us that are ready in a moment's notice if we need help, if we need to band together. And that's what we do. And we had one, Gary got real tickled at me, and I'll say this. We had one gentleman, and he wanted to join up with us. And I just flat out told him, I said, if you come to the table, you're going to bring something. In other words, you better bring food, you better bring a service you can render. And he said, well, my wife is sick. She has this, that, and the other, and she can't do much, but she could. And I said, she can sit on her tail with a wash tub and a plunger, and she can wash clothes. She can sit down and do it. I said, she's not going to come and join up with us and sit on her tail and think we're going to wait on her. Well, Gary got tickled at me because I put it to her just point blank, but you want like-minded people around you, and you don't want no slackers. But if somebody's down and out, you're going to help them.
Yep, that's right. I don't want to, we could sit here and wax poetic on this history stuff, but I think the point is that, like it or not, and during Hal's show earlier, Behind the Woodshed from 3 to 5, he was talking about some things that we typically talk about a lot, and unfortunately probably too much. The fact of the matter is that we're living, yet again, repeating history, being led by the nose by those who think that they know ways that we should live better than we know ourselves. And this is nothing new. It's just a cycle. We go through these cycles. And these psychopathic creatures, whatever the hell or whoever the hell they are, they go through this process, and eventually the whole system explodes. And unfortunately, those who got either caught up in it or bought into it or sucked into it or whatever turn out to be victims. And many of them will end up dying. It's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. So you have to have some sense about your place, just some sense, as Brenna was talking about, your network, your local system, if you will, something that you're plugged into. So you won't be a statistic. You won't be a victim of, yet again, this psychopathic push to try to put everyone in this one little basket. They're dressed the same, they talk the same, they look the same, they act the same. They don't say anything too far left or right. They stay right politically correct in the middle. They're not white, they're not green, they're not black. They're all just one shade of gray. And that's really the aspiration of these things that think they want to control everything. So anyway, so we don't belabor that too much. Mm-hmm. Now, all that whole talk was actually a segue into a story, but
we got time. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, segue. As you listen to all this story about the country ways, or the Appalachian ways more specifically, you probably wonder why we talk funny. Well, actually, an article came out about that, and guess what?
We don't talk funny; they talk funny.
That's right. The article came out, and guess what? The Appalachian magazine came out. The history of Appalachian English and why we talk different. Where are you from? An annoying question asked, usually in a condescending tone. And that's something that we both have probably had to endure our entire lives. And whether you travel north into Yankee Land or south into Dixie, it seems that way, that people that talk oddly are just out of place. We don't have a Yankee accent, but we also don't speak with a southern drawl. Ours is an accent that is entirely unique, and though it's often the subject of scorn and ridicule, the Appalachian dialect is an ancient connection to our rich heritage and deserves to be safeguarded and honored. Why do we speak this Appalachian English, though? Well, like many things related to the Appalachians, there's really not one clear answer to that question, but research suggests that the reason that so many of us pronounce words such as wire and fire, tire and retard, and as war and far and tar and retard, and the reason we say that is kind of obscured. The ancient or Appalachian English, rather, places an ER sound at the end of a word with a long O. For example, hollow, a small sheltered valley, is pronounced holler.
Holler.
Up the holler.
Where you live? I live up at Holler.
On the other side of the holler. Other examples are potato, pronounced tater, and tomato, pronounced mater, and tobacco, pronounced backer. H retention occurs at the beginning of certain words. It, in particular, is pronounced hit at the beginning of a sentence. And also, when emphasized, the word ain't is pronounced hain't. Hain't right, that ain't right. That ain't right.
That's right.
Right, GD's Boo?
That's exactly right. And if you want to know a funny thing, and they'll say, well, where are you from? We're from Appalachia. And I say, what? I said, in other ways, listen closely. I'll throw the apple at you. That's why we say it, like we're saying Appalachia. Appleatcha. Appalachia. I'm going to throw the apple at you. And so that's the way we say we're from Appalachia.
Right.
But Gary and I will be watching TV, and all of a sudden we can hear somebody speak, and I'll say, Appalachian. He'll say, you can't get it out of us, can you? And I say, well, we try. They seem to think, and we do better when we're not around Appalachian people. But when we get there, boy, we get flatter and more sounding like them than we did when we left, don't we? It's kind of like we kind of fall back into that dialect. Yeah.
Well, you have to, because that's how you talk. And you remind me of a story that was back when I was in the Marines. I don't remember exactly where this happened. I don't remember where it was, but I overheard, I guess, what turned out to be a new guy in the outfit. Overheard him talking to someone in another room, and I knew immediately that he was from close by where I was from. So I walked up there. I said, where are you from? And he told me the town that was like 10 minutes away from where I was from. But so it has that very specific sound. It just is. But why? But what's really behind all this? The predominant theory is that it's the result of isolation in the mountains beyond the Blue Ridge. And that's what makes the dialect one of the most ancient and protected dialects in the nation. And while our highbrow neighbors, and we all have some of our relatives rather, we all have some of those, who moved to the big city and lost their accent may frown upon our words and pronunciations, it's believed that the Appalachian dialect is a remnant of Elizabethan English. And evidence of this... I'm sorry?
Yeah, that's right.
And evidence
it is.
And evidence of this is the use of the word such as afeard, a Shakespearean word that is largely forgotten by most English speakers outside of the Appalachian region. You know, you a skeered or you a feared of that. You've heard that, right, Gigi Spoon? Other ancient phrases might be the use of might could for might be able to, the use of un with pronouns and adjectives such as young'uns, the use of done as a helping verb, that is, we done finished it, and the use of words such as airish. We know that one, don't we, Gigi's Boo?
Yes, yeah, windy.
Yeah. Brickle, swan, and bottomland, all of which were common in southern and central England in the 17th and 18th centuries.
I remember my grandmother saying, well, I swanee.
Interestingly, Appalachian English has virtually no Native American influence, with the exception being the place names. such as Appalachia or Tennessee or Kanawha, or Kanawha, as some people call it. While so many other regional dialects of the nation do contain heavy influences from Native Americans. This is noteworthy as it showcases something we know and realize today. The people who settled this region are not easily influenced by the accents and languages of others. Even if they become displaced, Appalachian English is a hard dialect to lose. And we know that, don't we, Gigi's Boo?
And they have sayings. Some of them's just really crazy. Well, we mentioned some of that. So that dog I ain't got no dog in that fight. Another one is, if something's hard to deal with and that you talking to another person, you say, that ain't no hill for no climber. In other words, you better not do that. And one I really liked was, my granddaddy used to say it, by God, I'm so mad I could slap both eyes into one. You know, certain things that people would say, and it's really funny and like, Lord have mercy. Well, there you go with that. Bless your heart again. I know my grandmother was in church. My great-grandmother was in church, and my mother was standing beside her, and she said, Lord have mercy. Said, look at that woman come down, talk to the preacher. Said, she looks like she's got two cats fighting in a toe sack for a butt. Well, my mother got tickled, and she was trying not to laugh, and she said, bless her heart, she can't help it, though. Then when they went out, she said, I told you, look at that gal with that big butt. Said, it looks like two cats fighting in a toe sack. Said, bless her heart, you know, her mama had a butt just like that. She can't help it. Well, they say things like that, and it's funny, and, you know, it really is. It's funny. There's some funny terms, like Irish. Woo, it's right Irish out here. And like you say, you're going to find it. And it's there, and you kind of got to know what it is.
Yeah, you got to tune
before you venture off into one of them hollers.
You got to tune your ear to it. It's like when JJ is playing the music. He's in Scotland, right? And he has. I have to tune my ear a little bit, but once I do, I hear him so similarly to the Appalachian accent type thing. It's interesting, but yeah, it's just a place where time stood still, and it still does in many respects, and as well it should. And yet again, this speaks to the importance of a social network of like-mindedness and locality. And that's just, things just work better that way. I don't know what else to tell you. It just, I think anybody who sits back and, for example, and we try very diligently not to get tangled up in divisive politics here on the Road Less Traveled. Mm-hmm. However, I will comment on this latest election in Virginia, the gubernatorial election. And as it turns out, the counties and, well, the cities, and what few there are in Virginia, but the counties numbered 15 counties that pushed the vote in the whole state. Now, these 15 counties all are in urban areas, Northern Virginia, along the coast around Richmond and Norfolk and all those areas, high urban areas. But this drove the vote for the whole rest of the state. So there's a problem with that. I mean, yeah, voting is okay and all that, but there's a problem when you have certain special interest-driven areas, I guess you'd say, that override the will of the whole rest of the state. I have an issue with that, but that's probably not uncommon. Yeah, Gigi. Well, let's change gears here. People, this is kind of a nostalgic show, I guess. So let's look back at some of the slang words from the 50s. Let's see how many people can identify these. This all kind of ties together. So there's an article from Crafty House that says these 20 slang terms from the 50s need to come back, like right away. Okay. And it tells us a lot about the times in which they were developed. You know, it talks about the 50s that were ripe with slang terms that we still use today in many cases. But some of them have been lost over time. So here are 20 of them that maybe we can push back into vernacular a little bit. How about Gigi's Boo? You know what an ankle biter is?
No, I don't.
It's a young, needy child.
I can see that, yeah.
Burning rubber. I think a lot of people probably know what
that's kind of taking off, isn't it?
Yeah, accelerating your car fast. Do you dig it? Yeah, I think most people.
Do you like it?
Yeah. Do you get into it? Do you like it? Well, this is Dullsville. You know, probably a lot of people say that about us right now. I don't know, but this is Dullsville. That means it's boring and, you know, whatever. Egghead. People probably know what that is. You're intellectual. Get on the horn. What do you think that might be, Gigi's Boo?
Get on it and get going.
Get on the horn.
Make haste, yeah. Actually,
it's to use the telephone. Get on the horn. Get on the horn.
See, I would have missed that one.
Now, I'm gonna. This is something that you do on Route 66. It comes from a song.
Wait a minute, I know that one. Get your kicks.
Yeah, get your kicks to have fun. Yeah. How about you get mad at somebody and say, I'm going to give you a knuckle sandwich?
I'd be smacking somebody in the face with a fist.
I mean, you're going to lose your cool, man. Don't lose your cool. Don't get angry. Or you can say, no sweat. That was easy. How about a pad? Let's go over to Gigi's Boo's pad.
Oh, Lord.
That's your place. That's where you live.
Got a pad with a bunch of dirgs.
Yeah. How about let's jump in the ragtop?
I bet that's convertible.
Yeah, that's right. And this got me all shook up.
That was a song one time.
Yeah.
Jittery, nervous.
Actually, very excited. Yeah, something like that. That dude's a shuckster, man.
I don't have any idea on that one.
That's a trickster, a cheater, or liar. In Appalachian, is also known as a shyster, which is also...
Yeah, and I know what a shyster is.
It's also a slang term for a toilet. That dude is square, man. Remember Dobie Gillis? That was probably before your time. That people were square. That's old-fashioned. You're not hip. But we can split Gigi's Boo. What we'll do here in a little bit. We'll go split. Icebox. Can you believe that? Can you believe that Vinny asked us if we knew what an icebox was, Gigi's Boo?
Of course. They still call, in the South, and most everybody won't call them a refrigerator or anything like that. They still call them an icebox, older people. And then if they tell you to, instead of icebox, they'll say, Granddaddy always said, get it out of the Kelvinator. And I realized that a Kelvinator was one of the first electric ice boxes that came out. So, yeah.
That's right.
Carpetbagger, that's somebody who went around and stole from people from the South.
That's right. The dadgum carpetbaggers. They still exist, too, buddy. You come. Mm-hmm. They still exist. And don't get me started on that. They come in and ruin everything. They just rent the whole place. They rent it. Oh, Gigi's Boo. A little bit of time left here. Thanks, Vinny. Yeah, you're right. You did say that we would know. The old icebox. But back before iceboxes, what'd you have, Gigi's Boo?
You had spring houses.
That's right. Some of my fondest memories of going up on the mountain to see my honest-to-God hillbilly relatives was to go up there and see the gourds hanging on the porch and go down to the spring house. And it was just the neatest thing with all the canned stuff and everything hanging up down there in the spring house.
Well, we got the springs up on the place in our mountains, and I got sick one time, and that's what I wanted. And I said I was going to go up and bring a case of mason jars down, quart mason jars filled with spring water. And Gary said, just as sure as we go up there to get it, if we get stopped, they're going to think we hauling liquor. I said, I'm going to tell them they better than Holland Liquor. It's good spring water. When I get sick, I want water from the spring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost, I don't know, it's kind of a strange thing, actually. You kind of have that craving, I think's the right word. Yeah. Benny says he told a friend to put something in the icebox once. Later, he couldn't find it and asked him if he put it in the icebox. He said, yeah, it's up there with the ice.
Oh, my God.
Yep. Yeah, spring house for milk and butter, and just keep all kinds of stuff in it. And it's not a difficult concept as long as you have the spring, access to the spring on your property. Well, let's see. We're running up to the end here. About 5 minutes left. Let's see. Got a couple of things. How about this? This one kind of fits in. From the Economist website, it poses the question. It's so hard for me to say asks. So it poses the question, why is everyone so busy? Time poverty is a problem partly of perception and partly of distribution. What do you think about, before we launch into this, Gigi's, but what do you think about this idea of people being so busy? I mean, it strikes me quite often as I look around that this seems to be the truth, but what's going on with that?
Really don't know. I think they're just busy doing nothing. You always heard where people sometimes work to keep from working.
Right.
So I think people are busy doing nonsense things.
Yeah, it could be that, and I kind of also credit the whole technology thing with the computer world, the computer age, I guess, with that, because it was originally sold to us that this was going to make our life so much easier. You'd have 30-hour, 25-hour work weeks and blah, blah, blah. Did not turn out to be the case at all. What actually happened was it just allowed the tasks to be accomplished much quicker, a quicker turnaround. So obviously we try to push more into the process. In other words, we try to make that 1 gallon bucket hold more than 1 gallon. And this, I think, but I haven't even started reading this. I actually haven't pre-read it. But it actually kind of makes me think that we've conditioned ourselves to think that we can accomplish so much more by doing so many other things at a much faster or more frequent rate. Does that make any sense to you, Gigi?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. Let's see what they say about it. Let's see. Okay. It says, the predictions sounded like promises. In the future, working hours would be short, and vacations long. Our grandchildren, reckon John Maynard Keynes, as I think most people know that name, in 1930 would work around 3 hours a day, and probably only by choice. Economic progress and technological advances had already shrunk working hours considerably by his day, and there was no reason to believe that this trend would not continue. Fast cars and more time-saving tools and appliances guaranteed more speed and less drudgery in all parts of life. Social psychologists began to fret. What would people do with all this free time? Well, unfortunately, this has not turned out to be a problem. Everybody everywhere seems to be busy. In the corporate world, a perennial time scarcity problem afflicts executives all over the globe, and the matter has only grown more acute in recent years, say analysts at McKinsey, a consultancy firm. These feelings are especially profound among working parents. As for all those time-saving gizmos, many people grumble that these bits of wizardry chew up far too much of their days. Whether they are moldering in traffic, navigating robotic voice messaging systems, or scything away at email, sometimes simultaneously. But why do people feel so rushed? Part of this is a perception problem. On average, people in rich countries have more leisure time than they used to. This is particularly true in Europe, but even in America, leisure time has been inching up since 1965, where formal national time use surveys began. Men toil for pay nearly 12 hours less per week on average than they did 40 years ago, a fall that includes all work-related activities such as commuting and water cooler breaks. Women's paid work has risen a lot over this period, but their time in unpaid work, like cooking and cleaning, has fallen even more dramatically, and I think Gigi's Boo might have something to say about that, thanks in part to dishwashers, washing machines, microwaves, and other modern conveniences, and also to the fact that men shift themselves a little more around the house than they used to. The problem, then, is less how much time people have than how they see it. Ever since a clock was first used to synchronize labor in the 18th century, time has been understood in relation to money. Once hours are financially quantified, people worried more about wasting, saving, or using them profitably. When economies grow and incomes rise, everyone's time becomes more valuable. And the more valuable something becomes, the scarcer it seems. I'm going to stop there for a minute, Gigi's Boo. What are your thoughts on this so far?
Well, you know how I am about all the modern conveniences. I like a washing machine, but I do not use a dishwasher that much. We have one, but I don't use it that much. We hand wash. I think people, as I said before, we live in such a fast-paced world, people have forgotten how to slow down. Am I making sense?
Yeah, go ahead. And it's actually, go ahead.
It's that they don't know how to stop, and that's one thing that Gary and I have started doing is we stop, we have tea, we stop, we talk, and I think it makes the love grow stronger. I'll tell you a little story. Sometimes I have nightmares really, really bad. And most of you all have been in this chat room know my story by now. But Gary we will go to bed and I'll go to sleep and Gary will let me sleep and he will stay up all night and watch after me. And then during the day, I let him sleep and I'm peeking and checking on him, but I don't want to wake him up. Years ago, people broke the night. And I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but it just seems like it should. People did not go to bed and sleep all night long. They had a break in their sleep. They might sleep 5 hours, get up and work a little bit, and then go back and sleep more, and then get up during the day and probably stay up all day. Now, I'm not exactly sure. Gary can tell you more about that. He's done some research into that. But I think we need to step back and take a little look at how fast-paced that our life is. The only two people that I know for sure in the chat room that's not going to live a fast-paced life is Grimnir and Hal. And, you know, they kind of beat to their own drum like Gary and I do too. And in a lot of ways, I think that's good. I don't think we ought to form to what society says we should do. I think we should do what we want to do. I refuse to have an alarm clock in the house. I hate those things. I would throw them through the windows because I would have to get up and be on a job. And I would tell the doctor the whole time, alarm clock's not good for you. It startles you. And I hate clocks. Gary has a watch and I have a watch. And then we have a clock that chimes, but it's a gentle chimer. And I think each of us need to break away from this, what society says is normal, and do our own thing. Yeah, we're going to get looked at and talked about and been crazy, but Gary and I do our own thing. We really don't care what people think. And somebody said, what do y'all do? Well, Gary piddles and works on things, and I sew, and I might can, and I might cook, or we just do what we want to do. And we do have income. and we make a lot of our income where we have our little own business and stuff like that. But I don't know how I got off on this, but I just think people need to get away from what everybody considers the norm. Do your thing. If you want to go back into the wilderness and live, do that. Try something different. If you can afford to do that, try something different. Be your own boss. Set your own hours. That's all I got to say. I just got off on a wild tangent there, Gary. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I think you very effectively argued against this whole concept of collectivism. Because what you described that you try to avoid is you're avoiding being a collectivist. You're avoiding whatever is considered normal or socially acceptable and all that stuff. It's just those are fancy code words for collectivism. So, so it was good, and we ran over a little bit, but so got anything left
I'm
to
sorry.
say? No, it's okay, because you had a good run going there, and I'll edit the archive. There's always uhs and buzz and dead air and and clicks and pops and all that stuff I cut out. So.
Vine said they hate an alarm clock too. We hate them. We really do. We hate them.
So,
but we ran over a little bit tonight. This was a good night for us, and it's been a good week. And we just want to say, be sure to take the road less traveled. You will find it much more pleasurable. And remember, I love y'all big to my heart. And y'all have a wonderful week till next week.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us here this week on The Road Less Traveled with Gary Hill and Gigi's Boo over at RealLibertyMedia.com. So come on over to Real Liberty Media, say hello, and check out some of the great content over here. So anyway, until next week, we hope you have a great one. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.